101 for this is our third formal economic recovery task force. I really want to thank everyone for the work that you've been doing over these last several days, just in the last week or so. I know some of you had the opportunity to either interface directly with our staff or some of your colleagues in the business community. Others obviously met as committees. The committees we established at the last meeting to come up with some great ideas that we might be able to implement potentially regionally and certainly things that City Council could immediately contemplate doing. Some of the ideas, really good ideas. We've already been moving on some of them, which is good. I think probably one of the greatest things that we've all learned is that when we're dealing with these times when things are very changing very fast, when the virus is literally changing every day, it's important to try and move quickly. So we've endeavored to do so. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your effort. We're going to run through the agenda fairly promptly, go into the committee reports. And then obviously we'll have, as we always do, task force open discussion for your thoughts and feedback and constructive criticism as to how we might take the very next steps. So again, appreciate y'all. Appreciate all the members of council and city staff on the line and all of our incredible business leaders who've been giving your time, your talents, and your treasures to make sure we do this and do it right. So can we get a quick sit rep from Chief Harry Tinsley?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, so as of this morning, everybody, I'm sure you're aware, we're over 1.4 million confirmed cases in the U.S. That's over 85,000 total deaths. Here in South Carolina, we have 8,189 confirmed cases with all 46 counties reporting. Over 2,500 of those cases are here in the Midlands. Sadly, since our last Zoom meeting, we've had an additional 55 deaths, bringing our state total now to 371. There were 172 new cases as of yesterday. Additional updates will post this afternoon. So there's over 100,000 tests performed in South Carolina, and that is ramping up as we speak. The current test rate, the positive test rate, is about 6.1%. So as those numbers of tests increase, the one notable point is the total number of positive test percentages are going down. So as the testing goes up, we're seeing the numbers go down in positive, and we expect that number to continue to show that today as they post out on the trend. Hospitalization rate continues to about 20%. Recovery rate is up slightly from 78, it's now 81%. And Richmond County currently has 14 cases as of yesterday, and we're within 1,180. That's in Richmond County. And as our last meeting, we've had 8 additional deaths, unfortunately, bringing Richmond County's total to 60. Again, the highest zip code activity continues to be the 29203, 29210, 29223, and 29229. As far as hospitals, statewide, the hospital bed utilization rate stands at 69.7%. That's up slightly. There are currently 443 patients hospitalized with COVID-19 in our state. Here in the Midlands, our acute bed hospitalization rate is 71.2%. That's up slightly. Statewide, the hospital bed capacity remains good, and we are continuing to monitor and focus on testing in our area. We'll speak a little bit about that later. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. So nuggets of challenging news, but also good news there. It's encouraging seeing the testing being ramped up, and I know we've been working very closely with DHEC and some other partners on making sure that we help coordinate it as much as possible, at least as relates to here in this metropolitan area. Seeing the testing go up is a very good thing, and see the percentages coming down. So thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. I think we got Ryan Coleman up. Ryan, Office of Economic Development, conducted a business survey. And Ryan, you want to give the background on it, and maybe go ahead and present?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Taylor, I'm gonna do a share screen if possible. I've got the survey results up. Let me get this situated. Okay, the survey's been up and running for about 2 weeks, and we'll continue to run that through the course of the weekend and officially close that out first thing Monday, at which point we'll pull the results and provide that information to council and the public and make that available. We've had about 300 respondents on this survey, primarily coming through, a lot of them have been restaurant, retail, and tourism related. I would say I've been pretty pleased with the results that have come in. I think it sounds like there's some optimism on behalf of the local businesses. Many feel that they will be hopefully returning to normal operations sooner rather than later. So as you can see here, 55% feel that they are getting to a point where they feel safe as the federal, state, and local governments are easing their restrictions. Businesses, the majority of our businesses are either operating normally or on a limited basis. So I think it's probably about 60%, 60 to 70% right now are in operation. And then, we still have a contingency of businesses that are kind of assessing the situation and figuring out how to get their plans in place so they can do so successfully.
Ryan, would you mind going back 2 slides? Just curious as the respondents, kind of the different groups that they kind of fit into.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So right here, restaurant at the top, retail underneath, tourism and lodging, information technology, and we'll have to clean these up a little bit. That some of the results kind of get offset and boxed out just due to that. Large number of healthcare. You see gym and fitness, but by and large, let's see, 53, 55. Half of those come from restaurant, retail, and tourism alone.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Down to operate. Let's see, we were at operating status. This one was a little surprising as well. I know the current restrictions are kind of difficult for businesses, but 75% do feel that they can continue to operate on some type of partial or limited basis. There is a lot of concern, though, about employees returning when companies can begin safely operating, and we have heard some concern from businesses, about folks using the unemployment program and, whether they want to resume work as businesses are opening currently. So there's definitely some challenges there with how that program has been implemented and getting people back in. So here you can see, on a normal scenario, we ask the companies kind of the standard breakout. How many employees do you generally have during the month of March and April in a standard scenario? That number is about 47% in the 1 to 5 range. Given our current situation, that number jumps up about 25 or 30% up to 70. So we have seen that's where you've seen kind of the business employment downsize over the past few months. Just a huge concentration in folks that have had to downsize. Right here, we've got a breakout of the enhanced sanitation techniques that folks are using. So you'll see a lot of folks have gone to the delivery, takeout, shop by appointment. Single directions. I was surprised by that. Single direction shopping lanes have not gotten much traction. A lot of people have gone to face masks for employees and would consider face masks for customers as well. Touch-free payment style. We'll have to clean this up here. I'm not sure what these bars up there. I think this one right here would be the enhanced sanitation with hand sanitizer and things of that nature as well, given the number of respondents that replied with that one, 165. Yeah, that would have to be the enhanced sanitation. And then we took it a step further and said, what techniques would folks be willing to consider? I think for the most part, people are pretty wide open and fair game as to, including some different things that they may not be doing now in order to try to reopen a little bit quicker as well. Move past that. Out of the 300 respondents, 50, 60%, most all of them are somewhat comfortable that they can continue to pay utility bills, which may not be huge for most people. Payroll, a little surprised at the building lease and mortgage number. That I think that percentage started off higher. We've seen that start to lag a little bit more over the past few weeks, though. Sorry for the child in the background.
We're all doing it, brother. It's all good.
And then here you'll see the breakout of what people have applied for. A lot of respondents who've gone through the Paycheck Protection Program, and then many grant program respondents as well. And then here you can see the breakout of the amounts that companies have received. The distribution is pretty spread even. 20% have gotten under 5,000, 15%, 5 to 10,000, 12%. Few people over here doing very well, 12% in the 100,000 or more range. So I'm glad that we have had some local businesses that have been able to get in there and take advantage and offset some significant cost here between 50 to 100,000 and 100,000 or more. So that is a good statistic to see. And then kind of wrapping up here closer to the end, large majority of businesses that feel within the next 3 to 6 months, they will resume some normalcy in their operations. So that's a pretty optimistic statistic to see. And I think, given what we're talking about today, currently, we want to continue to work and, see those numbers go up even further. But that's pretty good right there. 70% overall think that there's going to be some normalcy in the next 6 months. And then here's kind of considerations that are preventing people. Reduction in customer demand is by and large kind of the largest inhibiting factor, and lack of cash flow. So not just getting open, but getting normal traffic back in the door is kind of going to be a deterrent to many people. I think we were all kind of aware that once we reopen, there will be a lag there, and then just the immediate financial cash crunch of what's being dealt with now and what's yet to come with reduced traffic. Those are two significant factors that are coming in at over half of respondents on both. I'm gonna have to jump off, Mayor. Sorry.
Yeah, if that's the more important, brother. All right. Let's keep on growing. Let's try and take care of the priorities. Okay. Taylor. All right. Sorry, so we've had really quickly, I wanted to have a quick departure from the published agenda, give a quick update from El Matney and or Missy Gentry on parking. I know she's had an opportunity to meet with our executives in our hospitality districts and share the parking plan going forward, and give her a chance to update everyone on our plans to work to create turnover in the district. This is obviously the city was way out ahead of a number of communities and making sure that we did all the business friendly do to make sure our restaurants in particular were able to adjust to the modified way in which they had to do business with takeout and like. But Elle, why don't you give us an update as to where things are going?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to update everyone. As we know, upon the onset of COVID-19 back in March, Columbia's Parking Service Division was one of the first cities to react quickly and suspend parking operations in support of social distancing, as well as the anticipated economic impact to our local businesses and community. That suspension back in March included raising all of our city facility gates, as well as providing complimentary on-street parking. We'll continue to support and review and listen to the needs of our community as we all begin the reopening process. Parking Services, along with Economic Development, did brief our merchant associations yesterday with the upcoming enforcement changes and received positive and supportive feedback. On Monday, as seen in the chart in front of everyone, we'll begin to gradually ease into reestablishing parking enforcement by starting with friendly warnings. There will be no expected form of payment throughout the month of May until June 1. So we are encouraging the turnover that's needed for our local businesses as they begin to reopen in support of everyone parking long-term in the gated facility. The gates will also continue to be raised until June 1 to support everyone moving off of the timed parking in support of turning it over for the businesses. We do not at this time have any plans to change the red bag meter program for pickup takeout. We've gotten great feedback, and as businesses, restaurants have seen significant business, we don't want to take that away. That serves a purpose and a need. So the current regged bags on many of our blocks that support that pickup and takeout will remain in effect.
All right, good deal. Thank you, Elle.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. All right, good deal. All right, let's keep on moving and get into the subcommittee reports. We've had some great and the feedback I've been getting is some fairly robust discussions. So I think we're going to go first to small businesses. Who's presenting on behalf of the committee?
Melissa, you there? I'm pulling up your slides.
You're muted right. There you go.
Okay. I just want to thank the Small Business Subcommittee that we met yesterday morning at 8:30. We had over 25 participants on the call, and it was a very good discussion, very active participation. My fan is on in my office, so it may be a little loud. Aisha, Kalina, Carla, they led this discussion. It was great, interactive. And as you can see, we had a diverse group, and some of them are actually on here today. But we also had diversity of thought from different industries, so we can get feedback from everyone. I know we have very limited time, but I do want to thank the small business subcommittee group that met yesterday. Y'all did a great job. And I'll let Aisha explain some of the results and recommendations that we came up with. Aisha?
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, Mayor and community partners. Here's a list of our recommendations and strategies. The first one is access to the personal protection equipment. We want to make sure our strategy is to connect employers with vendors. We had SC Commerce on the call, and they let us know about the sccovid19.org website that can connect employers with vendors that can provide PPE, because that was one of the concerns of the group, is access to the PPE at this time. Also, if there's a possibility for the city to secure additional PPE and provide that to the Columbia businesses, we want to make sure we make the community aware of those opportunities as they become available. The next one was to provide guidance online from credible sources. We want to make sure we are sharing information that is accurate and from credible agencies such as CDC, DHEC, OSHA, SBA, and the U.S. Department of Treasury. And as we're already doing, we want to continue to link and share the safety and health guidelines from those federal and local authorities through social media and the COC website. OSHA shared with us some worker safety guidance that they've received from the CDC, and we are going to continue to share that with the public. That's just an example of one of the flyers that OSHA provided to us. We're having constant communication with them to find ways to share this information with the public. The next one was an FAQ for federal funding related to PPP and the EIDL funds. Some of the concerns were regarding forgiveness and tax implications. Of course, we're going to encourage businesses to contact their CPAs as necessary to see how the impact would be on their individual businesses. But one of the concerns is just being fearful of spending those funds without being aware of the tax implications. So we thought it'd be a good idea to provide an FAQ regarding the expenditure of those funds. The next one is to host a series of webinars to assist businesses with COVID-related expenses, capital access options, planning, and preparation. We saw a strong need for industry-specific webinars. The needs of salons and barbershops are probably different from the needs of retailers. So we thought that providing a webinar where we kind of bring an industry-specific expert as well as OSHA to come in and talk about some guidance. And like I said, we've been in contact with OSHA, and they are going to schedule some specific city-related webinars that we can provide to our businesses related to their needs as they begin to reopen. We also saw a strong need for financial webinars related to strengthening the financial infrastructure of our small businesses. One of the major concerns was once the funding was available, some of our small businesses weren't really prepared to access those funds. So we think that we need to spend a lot of time kind of training those businesses how to better prepare as the funding comes down the pipeline in the future. Just making sure they're aware of profit and loss statements and just the financial infrastructure of their business. So we're going to plan to do some webinars associated with those needs. The next one was coordinate with agencies such as Fast Forward to work with our small businesses to prepare them to work more effectively in this new normal. It became very apparent that remote working required more access to technology and education regarding technology. And we felt like there's an opportunity for us to help our small businesses with some of their technology needs and just educating them on how to utilize that technology. The next one is conduct citywide testing for businesses. One of the concerns that came out of the subcommittee is if there is a citywide testing for a business that's located in the city, some of their employees may be located outside of the city, and the employers want to make sure those employees have access to the testing if that becomes available citywide. The next one was to help with messaging to encourage physical, mental, and emotional health awareness. We did a lot of discussion about safety and financial resources, but one of the things that was encouraging to me is the importance of the physical, mental, and emotional health of the employees and the customers, and how we should put some efforts into pushing out that information as well, just to encourage the mental and emotional health being impacted right now for everyone. The last one is provision of uniform signage and ground decals for businesses. The city's already started those efforts. On the next slide, we have some of those decals that the city is pushing out soon with the stay safe and staying 6 feet apart. And also one of our partners, DISA, sent us some examples of some flyers that they're utilizing as well. And we just see a need for some of the business to see some uniform signage just to help encourage people for social distancing and staying 6 feet apart. We've done some research of the different cities in the area just to see what they're doing and see some examples of some flyers that maybe we could utilize for the city to share those with the employees. The next slide shows some signage for customers as well, which is similar, just showing them the different face coverings that they could utilize. And then the next slide is just about social distancing. As a reminder, we could just have decals and signage that just remind people to social distance and stay 6 feet apart. The last slide is a customizable flyer that we found on the U.S. Chamber website, where individuals can put in their logos, their contact information, and what methods or actions they are taking to keep people safe, secure a healthy environment, and creating a flexible workplace.
I want to add one thing. Aisha, great job, great job. You captured everything. I also want to just say that I spoke with Sylvia in our IT department to make sure that we're working together, IT here, and we're utilizing the expertise that we have right here at the city to provide whatever we can, whatever type of technical support we can to our businesses. So we certainly will work together. She was a part of this conversation, and we certainly will continue that dialogue. I think that's it. And I saw some of the expressions on the mayor's face for some of that signage. Of course, we have some more skills here at the City of Columbia, and some of our marketing and graphic designers can certainly do a better job at designing some of that stuff. But it just was to give you an idea of what some of the cities are doing. Sometimes, you know, some things are simple are more easily understood. So that's just some things to keep in mind. Thank you.
I thought the signage was great. I thought that was great.
Like,
and I think there may be even some more discussion in the communications committee that obviously all the committees overlap in one way or another. I thought it was great report. I do want to make sure, and I think we may have discussed last meeting, but we've had so many conversations in between, making sure that we do have some accounting and or tax professionals or tax attorneys or what have you, because I do worry, not on the local level, but you know, some conversations we've had, Melissa,
Yes,
about the federal government can be pretty sketchy sometimes in terms of, and this is a bipartisan statement, is inconsistent.
Yes, sir.
And I'd hate for some of our businesses that take advantage of any of the federal programs to find themselves next year in a bind as relates to tax liability. So I think maybe just making sure we have the active participation going forward of someone who's a APA and or a tax attorney. If we don't already, we may already. If we don't already, let's get somebody in the mix that that our businesses can rely on informally for some type of a direction. Just as much as we can do for them, the better.
Okay.
But that was a great report. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
And I encourage everyone on the call, if you got some thoughts, maybe take some copious notes, and we'll have a chance and open discussion to kind of go through everyone's feedback. Public policy. Tell who's leading public policy.
Missy Kaufman.
Okay. If you're on, we can't hear you. I'm gonna have to take you off mute. And I can't see if she's on right now, Taylor.
She's on, but having some issues. I'll call her and we can come back.
All right, we'll come on back. We'll come back to public policy. Communications.
Okay, Mayor, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll jump to communications. First, I'd like to thank those on the communications committee. Missy Gentry has actually been working with Scott with M360 on some of the signage that Melissa just referenced. So we thank them for their work, and I'm sure that Missy will review some of that even in her update later as we look at different committee reports. Also, thanks to Scott in the mayor's office, we communicate basically daily to make sure that we're pushing out messaging, not only on behalf of the mayor, but also on behalf of the city. So he's been a valued team member to make sure that we streamline communications with our mayor's office. We'll start off with communications from a standpoint of where we are now and moving forward. We do have information regarding Resilient Columbia, which Columbia City Council asked that we please stick with the theme and branding so that we can ensure that our messaging is consistent. We've been using Resilient Columbia as a theme and focus from the onset of our focus on our business community. They've asked us to please stick with the same Resilient Columbia branding. We do have an image we'd like to show you regarding some of our messaging moving forward. We have been working diligently in public relations and with our team and our staff to move forward with some branding for Resilient Columbia. Of course, our first step out of the gate focused on communications because of input from those who've been talking about what is needed as far as information. So we have actually been working on developing a business FAQ document along with input from various city departments. The business community has been communicating with our staff in OBO and economic development, asking that the city provide some guidance and some clarity, since there are messages coming from various sources. So Columbia City Council actually reviewed that document, and we want to thank those city departments also, as well as our small business owners who've been integral in helping us with developing that document by giving us feedback. We were able to include information from the Columbia Police Department. I've already mentioned Columbia City Council, Columbia Richland Fire, our Office of Business Opportunities, our Economic Development Office, as well as Planning and Development Services. Input from them, as well as answering questions that businesses have. And we thank our legal department for reviewing that document. That document actually will be pushed out today to media, but also to our business community. We'll be utilizing the efforts of OBO, Economic Development and Planning, as well as other business stakeholders to get that information shared from a standpoint of the FAQs. What you're seeing, or what you saw previously, was a logo that we developed to actually add to our Resilient Columbia branding, and we'll be placing that on our FAQs and any other documents. This is a document that will continue to be updated. So please, anyone listening, as you receive questions, as we need to try to answer questions for the business community, please contact me or Public Relations. We can add those questions to the list. So this is not an end-all, be-all. Once you actually see the FAQs, that will be rolled out later today. As we move forward, again, any input you have, please let us know, because this is a fluid process. In addition to the business FAQs being shared with all stakeholders, we also want to move forward with more visual messaging. So we will be reaching out to our local influencers to develop videos and public service announcements that can be placed on various platforms and shared by our stakeholders. Of course, we want our city officials to be our ambassadors and messengers, including the mayor and city council, also including our public safety command staff from police and fire, as well as getting some of our local business leaders from the chamber and other entities to help us share Resilient Columbia messaging, not only from a station standpoint, but also from an information standpoint, to help our business community as they start to reopen their businesses on a local basis. We will share these videos not only on city communications platforms, but for any entity that would like to have access to the videos, we will share those. So those can be placed on multiple websites across our city. Even if business owners want to share information with their employees and with the general public, we'll make those resources available, and the production will be done internally by City PR, and then we'll share the videos across the board with anyone who would like to share those with the general public. We're also looking at other messaging processes that we can use internally. We'll be moving forward with messaging for water bill inserts with the City of Columbia, as well as placing information in publications, social media, website, etc. But we did want a visual image, and also we wanted our community to hear from the voices of our business leaders and, of course, the mayor and city council. In addition, on next week, we've been working diligently behind the scenes in public relations with our staff and also with our web hosts. We will be launching a microsite for Resilient Columbia for information. We have been finding that on our city website, there's a lot of information, but also we feel that it's critical that business owners and the public be able to go directly perhaps to an online hub for economic recovery information, business resources, and of course, COVID-19 safety guidelines. So we will be pushing out the launch of the Resilient Columbia microsite on next week, and the domain name will be resilient.columbiasc.gov. We want this to be a one-stop shop. We'll also add links not only for our internal business offices, OBO and Economic Development, for their websites and web pages, but also local entities that have business resources and information, like our Restaurant and Lodging Association, as well as the Chamber and any other business entities, where our business owners can get access to quick, easy, and factual information to help them as they restart and reopen their businesses. So we'll be reaching out on a widespread basis to invite anyone who would like to have us add their links to their websites or any information, and we'll be handling the posting and coordinating of that information internally in City PR. In addition, we are focusing on partnerships, not only with local media, talking to our media partners about how we can connect with them to get public service announcements forwarded out to the public, but also interview opportunities for city leaders and business leaders, as well as working through the mayor's office. Of course, we all know that Mayor Benjamin has a very widespread reach, not only nationally, but internationally. And he's also a resource for lots of information that he's getting from multiple sources. So we want to make sure that any information coming in through the mayor's office, we'll be working with Scott in order to coordinate that we can then quickly push that information back out to the business community as well about resources that may be helpful to them. We will also be linking up with our hospitality district representatives. Normally, those representatives have been more connected to our business-related offices, but City PR, we want to make sure that we begin to communicate with them and invite them to share information. And we can also add links for the hospitality district website to the Resilient Columbia website to give our general public easy access to any reopening information from various hospitality districts, and also an opportunity for them to promote specials or deals or anything else that will help bring the public back to the business community to help support them as they reopen. In addition, we will also be trying to focus on making sure that our public safety departments are included in this communications process, because as we well know, they're working diligently to support our business community, but also to ensure that our citizens are safe, practicing social distancing, as well as other safety guidelines throughout the city across the board. So it will be a multifaceted effort to communicate and also formalize new partnerships as we move forward. Signage has been mentioned. PR has been integral with helping with any signage information that Missy and Kyle with Image 360 have been working through. And then as Melissa mentioned earlier, any support needed from City PR to assist with the development of signage for businesses or other entities, we can help with that as well. Also, testing information, we've been trying to assist with pushing that out as a request from Mayor Benjamin to make sure that citizens know where they can be tested locally for coronavirus, but also the information was mentioned earlier about trying to share that information also with our business owners so they can get employees tested. So Resilient at Columbia, the microsite will also have that information. We currently have a web slider now that will take the public directly to information regarding testing locations that are available, but we will also place that information on the Resilient Columbia microsite so that business owners will know where they can send employees for free testing opportunities. That's where we are now. This is a fluid process, of course, so anything that we need to move forward on, other than what I've covered today, we'll be working behind the scenes with our partners to ensure that we're communicating effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Leisha. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is Missy Kaufman up with our public policy?
Missy, you there?
All right.
All right. We'll try again.
We'll come on back. Yeah, absolutely. And I see Ryan's back too. Ryan, hope the baby's okay. The restoring travel, tourism, and business recruitment. Who's presenting?
Yes, sir.
That you again, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, and I think, and also I saw you posted in the chat the link to the survey. It's going to close out next week, I think you said. But
yes, sir.
You may want to find the link. It's in Ryan.
We've added the link in there, and that will be up through the duration of the weekend, and then we'll take it down Monday and press those results. Let me see. Let me get the view up here. Slideshow.
I want to make sure we have enough time for questions as well at the end, y'all. So let's make it comprehensive and tight.
Okay. Had a brief meeting with some of our group members this week: Bill Ellen, Matt Kennel, Jeff Rubel, and Sean with Southern Valley. And we've got some follow-up scheduled for next week. We're going to have to expand our committee a little bit. Basically talking, Bill is working with on the Accelerate SC group as well. So part of his status update, was regarding the event scheduling. And right now, I mean, event scheduling is pretty much done through June. A lot of those things have been canceled. And so the timeline to start looking at bringing in, formal events is kind of looking around July and outwards. One thing positively that Bill did note is that around 60% of the events had not canceled, but they have rescheduled out for later in the year. So that it's good to see that we are still managing to capture some of that, and that the timelines have just been shifted. Part of the challenge with this is going to be the new spacing guidelines. So we talked about the ballroom at the convention center. Due to the guidelines that are in place, a 20,000 square feet of space only provides enough room for about 300 people. We haven't had a chance to dig into that, but obviously that is going to require some new thoughts and tactics, about what we're booking, how we're booking it, who we're marketing to, and then if there's other things that can be done that would increase that capacity. For instance, if you can provide PPEs and face masks for everybody, does that allow for putting more people into space? There's just some unknowns around that. And so we're going to have to kind of see where some of the guidelines take us and what we can pivot to work around some of these things. Hotel and office updates. One positive thing, Jason Outman and I talked yesterday, local hotel occupancy is currently doing well at about 35%. Right now, we are leading state and national averages in that. And so part of the strategy going forward will also be working more with that sector to speed up those recovery efforts. So they're definitely, we're going to have some more input from those people and have them at the table as we start to discuss how we're going to go about safely bringing people in, particularly in hotels that are closed in densely populated areas. And right now, our local office market is doing pretty well. It's stable. We haven't seen, a significant amount of closures yet. Say what you want about being kind of a governmental town. One good thing that does provide us is stability in an economy like this. And so, the government sector can provide a bit of a buttress to the office market. And then most of the local businesses, the office businesses that we've talked with, have been able to shift to remote work. So we haven't seen a significant decline in our local office market, at least not yet. Strategically overall, there's going to need to be probably an across-the-board adjustment in marketing strategies as how we promote a clean and safe city. Promoting an environment that's open but precautionary so that the tourists and businesses feel safe and welcome. And so there's already Experience Columbia has already started to pivot and have created some new branding that's built around the consumer confidence. I've seen some of the examples of that. I don't know if they're quite ready to share that yet, but it does look good, and it's based around having interactions with people and in person. So one of the ones that they shared was the real meetings, real soon, real Columbia, South Carolina, for meetings and event planners, and they've got a whole slew of those kind of planned and oriented at different groups. And then something we talked about with our local business associations is they're working to safely and responsibly reopen their areas a little more en masse. Was a "We're ready when you are" campaign. So, opening the businesses and then creating the environment that is welcoming and encourages people to come out and shop and brings tourists in. And we will kind of continue to bring those groups together and collaborate more about those messages and how we communicate that. Something else that the committee discussed and that we think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to leverage the city's responsiveness as a recruitment tool for business. We've been a national leader in how we've managed to and adjust to these things. And I think for us, that can be a real selling point as we want to bring businesses back to Columbia going forward. You've got an open government here that's responsive, that has adjusted. This is a safe place for your business to be. Jason shared with me some virtual tour examples that other cities are doing. I think part of our effort is going to have to involve incorporation of new technologies. How are we going to use these things to bring businesses here? And in situations where, like we're seeing in the recruitment environment, where you're not having people physically travel to a location, you need to take the location to them. So there are some things that they've done here around these drone flying, doing these virtual aerial tours. Durham has one. Wilmington has another one. I've got this pulled up, and I may try to jump to it real quick at the end, just to show y'all visually what these look like. But they're incredible tools. That's just from the convention side. This is also kind of happening in the traditional economic development space as well. And so this is where we really need to get in, start exploring the technology that's out there, and adopt some new strategies, just to show people office space and show people available sites as well. I mean, we're going to have to pivot and do things to accommodate, the new operating environment with the drone technology, with 3D photography and virtual reality tours. There are communities right now across the U.S. that will do a site walkover, load it into a virtual reality environment, and send somebody a $300 virtual reality headset and take them on a virtual site tour without that person ever having to leave the city that they're in. So until we're at such a point to where business travel resumes and folks are coming in for more of the site tours and things of that nature, we kind of have to think about this a little bit differently. And I've already talked with some folks in the commercial real estate environment. I think this is something that we could do across the board, and probably en masse in Columbia, to take these office spaces and sites and put them online in a new and meaningful way. And then if I can, hold on, Taylor, I've got one thing I'll try to show real quick, just to give you kind of a feel of, this is what Wilmington, North Carolina has done for their tourism area. And so you can see it's really taking the city to people. These are some options of some things that we may want to entertain, to continue to promote Columbia and get our traffic back up. And you can key in on specific sites. You can drill down. You can get more information, website links, things of that nature. So there's some really innovative and powerful stuff out there, and we think these could be some good possibilities for us to use locally as well. And that's it.
It's good stuff again. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much. Public health and safety.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Again, this is Harry Tinsley, Office of Emergency Management. I will be brief. Clarity and brevity I know is important. I'm just going to highlight 4 points. A good bit of what has already been spoken. So as we consider our strategy for opening and testing and social distancing in the public domain will be a chief focus, as everybody knows. So from the public health and safety perspective, there are basically 4 main points that we want to talk about. Our communication plan, would need to include the continued encouragement of our citizens and businesses to maintain social distancing, voluntary quarantine and isolation measures to ensure that we can continue to contain the coronavirus. And as Ms. Driggers said, we want to follow CDC guidance, the guidance of our DHEC, state DHEC office and our state OSHA office, and as it relates to your function and services. So we implement engineering controls such as high efficiency filters, increased ventilation rates in the work environments. It would also include installing physical barriers, which I know there's been a lot of talk about that, such as clear plastic, stage guards, ensure proper PPE and signage, and implement administrative controls to encourage sick workers to stay home and minimize contact between workers, clients, and customers as you consider your strategies going forward. Provide workers with up-to-date education and training opportunities, and continue to push out proper PPE and the training on how to wear the proper PPE. And then the other focus would be testing and tracking. And our strategy to reopen Columbia involves a focused, coordinated effort, as we've been discussing this and having many conversations. Our three main points that we're working on right now, and Pam, our chief of staff, may want to elaborate a little bit, is to test our high-risk populations. Those things are ongoing right now. Test frontline workforce and small businesses, and we partner with corporate businesses. And I know many of you know there's some public testing going on today at the State Fairgrounds over the next 3 weeks. It is by appointment, just to make sure that they can control the traffic, but you can get tested where you're asymptomatic or symptomatic. And that information is on our website and all our public-facing media, but they can go to krogerhealth.com/COVID testing to get an appointment. And that'll be every Friday and Saturday for the next 3 weeks. And we want to push as many people to get their folks tested as they can. I'm not sure if Chief Holbrook or Chief Jenkins is on. They may want to talk about the public safety specifics. But pending any questions, that concludes my brief report. Thank you.
This is Chief Holbrook. I am on. I don't know that I have necessarily anything of real value other than, we're trying to strike that reasonable balance with continuing our focus on our important priorities, but we also recognize our role in enforcing and educating when it comes to social distancing and responsible behavior. We are focusing on our curfew, which is from 11 to 6. And really how we've approached that is if we are encountering people out and we're engaged in some type of enforcement action with them, we will address the curfew at that time. We are being responsive to calls for service with respect to large groups. We have, obviously, in our green space, we deal with that, but we're also seeing as we're, starting to restart, we see a lot of people that are interested and concerned about safety, so they'll call in when they see groups either standing in line for establishments, sitting too close together. And that's, that will continue to be somewhat problematic for us. But again, I think we have demonstrated time and time again that we are using extraordinarily good judgment, taking the approach of education, explanation, compliance with the time we get that, we do not put it back. If we have to citate, we will, and at the very last resort, we would, take somebody into custody, and that has not had to happen. We've had great compliance, but sometimes there is there is some, how do I want to say it? There's some fodder that occurs when a picture is posted on social media of a large gathering, and for whatever reason, the law enforcement will be villainized for not, taking steps to mitigate that. And, what we have found in kind of our post investigation of situations like that is we had in fact addressed it, but, we cannot maintain a presence 100% at a particular establishment all the time. We're answering calls for service, and, we're responding to things in our priorities of life. So to have that consistent presence is not practical. Therefore, we have got to have assistance from ownership of business establishments, whether it's box stores, mom and pops, or bars and restaurants. They've got to manage and be responsible for not only what goes on inside, but what goes on directly outside by the people that are getting ready to patronize or waiting to patronize their establishments. And if anybody's got any specific questions for me or concerns or something we need to talk about, I'm more than happy to do that.
Thanks.
Mayor,
Yes, Chief. Yes, Chief.
this is Chief Jenkins. I don't have anything to add. Basically, the same thing that Chief Hope was saying, other than just we're still kind of trying to maintain the capacities, working with businesses on their capacities, and that's working out well. Some of them asking us to do it, but also, you know, if we get complaints, then we answer those complaints. But that's about all I got to add to it.
Sure. Thanks.
And
So
Mayor, this is Pam Benjamin, Chief of Staff. I'm just real quick to piggyback on what Harry said. We are certainly working to make sure we have a good testing approach. In addition, we're going to have a testing provider tracking and a creation of a testing location database. We're going to be surveying businesses for information on their testing strategy and testing needs. And we're going to continue to push out any free or other resources for testing that we can provide to the business community. So I just wanted to say that information is going to be on the microsite that Leisha mentioned. And Kay Hampton is our point of contact for compiling our testing and tracking information. So you'll be getting some things sent out to the businesses real soon, probably next week, related to our testing, tracking, our database, and our testing location. So that I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure I got that in real quick.
No, absolutely. And I also was kind of waiting for the comment period. What Pam and Harry just touched on, and Kay, Hampton, others, we've been in constant conversations with a number of different parties around testing, because I know it came up in some of the committee meetings as well this week. There's a good bit of testing going on. Probably we all want more, but DHEC is really stepped up and coordinating with a number of public sector and private sector partners. So we want to encourage folks who want access to testing to understand that it's being offered. So, for example, what Harry mentioned earlier, Kroger Health is coordinating testing starting today. Go to the website. Their goal is to try and test up to 350 people a day for 7 days. So we could really potentially knock out well over 2,000 tests this weekend. I think the original plans were only to test symptomatic individuals, but they determined that asymptomatic individuals would be as well. And it's pretty, you have to register. So we want to encourage people. Some may have seen the e-blast we sent out, and we continue to communicate these things. Our goal is really to get our arms around all different testing possibilities out there, helping, making sure everyone's coordinating their efforts and just pushing that information out as much as possible. Not just to those who live in those zip codes we mentioned, but to small businesses or anyone who's looking for a coordinated strategy. Our job is to provide that strategy and push out information so that you can get that testing as needed. So again, thank you all for your efforts in the testing space. I think it's important. We know testing gives us data gives us intelligence. Intelligence allows us to make smart, not only public policy decisions, but business decisions. So a key piece of the puzzle. Thank y'all for your work there. All right, Mr. Kaufman, we good? Ready to go?
Good. Yes, ready.
It's usually me or Mr. Davis that has the tech issue, so I'm glad it's you this time. Okay, so it's on you, buddy.
Yes, technology is my friend. So thank you, Mayor. Glad to be here. We have submitted several recommendations. We have a very lively committee meeting yesterday, and included on our committee is Carl Blackstone with Columbia Chamber, Howard Duvall with City Council at large, Mark James with Cypress Commercial, Sam Johnson with Nixon Pruitt, and Kyle Michelle with the Michelle Law Firm. And joining us was Christina Scott of the Food Policy Committee. Our committee's charged with looking at the volume of policies coming out of the federal government, making sure we're leveraging that to benefit the city and small businesses, and proposing state solutions and innovations on local funding solutions. And of course, a lot of what we've heard today is very in line with what our committee has discussed and what we are looking at for recommendations to City Council. So our recommendations, the committee's recommendations, they've talked about items in sort of 3 different categories, and those being things that the City of Columbia can do, things that we would like to recognize and promote up to federal and state funding, but then also 2, looking at accelerated SC. So first, within City Council is continuing consideration for expansion allowance of encroachments for restaurants, retail, allowing our city streets and parking spaces to be utilized in certain areas, or allowing restaurants and businesses to expand their footprint while still meeting the capacity limitations that they are required to follow in order to be able to provide more social distancing but still meeting the capacity limitations. And continuing communication with our city assistants for better communicate, or more advancing of communications has been discussed already with regards to the city's assistance for small business, providing technical assistance for accessing the different federal and state programs that are available for our small businesses. We feel like that's definitely going to be a need for our small businesses to understand what is available, how to access that available, and how to make sure there's some compliance with the requirements to meeting those programs. Signage, definitely for businesses and the public, and social distancing, hand washing, wearing masks, and other. As you've already seen, some of the other committees are already doing those things, or the city's already doing a number of those items already. So that certainly is in line with what we were discussing as well. With the federal and state funding, there's a number of activities coming through, so we want to make sure we're utilizing those various fundings that they're coming through the city directly in terms of helping to purchase the PPEs, the personal protective equipment, so that in order to protect the workers and customers that visit these establishments. Some conversations around insurance assistance for small businesses to help with their employees and medical costs, but also some unemployment insurance to help provide to make sure that the workers are covered in the event that they do need to social distance or quarantine or take leave. Some of our committee recommendations were things that we felt like needed to be on a broader level and beyond just city limits, because they are things that really need to be covered throughout the community. So recommendation is for City Council to consider a resolution that would encourage accelerated SC to adopt certain measures for opening businesses but protect workers in our communities. So requiring customers to wear masks and entering business in the public, providing workers with masks, gloves, and other PPEs, mandating the 6-foot distance requirements, isolating workers who may come positive or test positive for COVID-19, providing access to hand washing stations to all workers, communicating with all workers their right to stay home, and then ensuring their workers experience repercussions or retaliations if they report violations. So again, a lot of what was discussed today is really in line with the Public Policy Committee recommendations and thoughts that we had. We had quite varying opinions in terms of how to approach some of these policies, but these are things that the committee touched on with regards to helping our small businesses, but also be safe, safe for the public, safe for workers, safe for employees, in order to encourage folks to come back out and to engage our community and engage the public, bring traffic back around to our small businesses and to our restaurants, but do so safely and to make sure that we are helping to convey confidence that it's safe for folks to come out.
Super. Thank you, Missy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to the committee as well. Sports and events.
Oh, we got a slideshow. Fantastic.
Hey, John.
How we doing?
All right, buddy, you're up.
Is there anything in this slide presentation, or is that just a cover?
It's just a cover, I think.
Yep. This is
Good enough. It'll be easier for me to read my notes if there's something else on the screen. So we had our first committee meeting yesterday, lunch hour. City representatives, Missy Gentry and Gregory Tucker, committee members, myself, Scott Powers from Experience Columbia SC Sports, Abby Nass from the Vista, and JP from Rice Music House. One of the first things that we discussed was recruiting a few more members, specifically in event spaces. So that's probably people, you know, in someone in the Senate, potentially someone from the arena as well. So that's what we're looking to do moving forward. And now we've reset standing meetings for Wednesdays at 4 p.m., which will be virtual for the time being. Some of the key discussion points and questions that came out of our discussion, including will the city and when will the city provide guidance on when and how events can be scheduled within the city limits? Just a couple of examples that came through the through Experience Columbia SC Sports is they've got a Southeastern Regional cornhole tournament scheduled for June. They also have the Cornhole World Championships scheduled in July. It sounds like based on the capacity numbers as they exist now that the regionals would not be an issue. And actually really the worlds too, because they rotate players in and out like a round robin softball tournament. So just looking for some direction as to when venues can begin planning events. Another one that JP brought up is, you know, June 21st is International Make Music Day, and trying to figure out a way to extend that to different places in the city. We discussed actually using Segra Park as one of the potential venues, but also as a place to stream it onto the video board. One of the, you know, the benefits that we have here at Segra Park is that, you know, just on the baseball field alone is 130,000 square feet, which provides ample space for social distancing. And our exterior space is around double that when you're counting in the concourse and things along those lines. Question is, should the city and partner agencies maintain a list of planned events across the city in some manner? They've kind of, I guess there was a list that contained the canceled events in March and April. But as we move forward now into June and the summer months, having someone be a clearinghouse for all these events and figure out how they're tracking, whether they're continuing, whether they're being postponed. You know, a lot of this really kind of dovetails back into the question is when there's some guidance provided by the city for when and how these events can be scheduled. One of the things, and I'll touch real briefly back on the Restoring Travel and Tourism group. One of the things that we discussed was creating a network of support across the venues in areas that would allow for additional expansion. So let's say the convention center has an event that's a little bit too big for them, where we could share spaces and, you know, maybe perhaps they could expand to a ballroom, parts of it to Segra Park or another venue where it might make sense to help keep the events coming, keep the hotel nights intact and that revenue coming in, and also be able to accommodate the groups within the guidelines. Some venue activities and considerations, obviously reduced capacity, significant capacities are significantly reduced, but larger venues still have capacity or greater capacity than smaller ones, which may offer some you know, unique experiences. One of the things that was brought up as it pertains to Segra Park is, you know, we will be pivoting in the near future to a restaurant / entertainment space because we do have all this outdoor square footage we're talking about table service, just like a normal restaurant, with either a trivia night or music or some sort of entertainment feature that would fall within the social distancing guidelines. We're also kind of plotting out for the future a field grid that would provide us an opportunity to do movie nights for the community on the field. We've actually got a roadmap from a team in Daytona Beach that's launching theirs this week, which is amazing how many people you can get into either 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 spaces and still allow for proper social distancing. We did get into a bit about the disinfectant, sanitization, and intensive cleaning processes and procedures for event venues. Cashless payments, which is something that the Fireflies have wanted to do, but now I feel like we're in a mode where moving forward, probably not for anything in 2020, but by 2021, to be a cashless venue. And if our credit card companies could keep up with the rest of the world, we'd even like to be contactless. I know not every credit card company yet is having the contactless, but we'd love to see that moving forward. We've discussed and we've actually seen some samples, at least from our end, from customer and participant waivers. We're kind of going off of one that the Biltmore is using now as they reopen, which basically takes the liability away from the venue. Because I think, as we're seeing, and Chief mentioned this earlier, we can provide all the guidance and restrictions, but there is some level of social and personal accountability. So we feel like that's kind of a best practice moving forward. And then also just basically, how we're managing restrooms and events or in event venues. So larger venues, I think it's a bit easier than smaller ones. But just wanted to share that information. We're looking forward to again, expanding the group and furthering these discussions. But I think the big takeaway really from our group is when we can expect some guidelines and guidance from the city for when we can formally start to plan kind of these non-restaurant style events.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I appreciate all of this information, and I know I have a very brief words to give after the committees are finished, but I also want to be really cautious and clear about where the city's responsibility and authority lies with some things when we're putting certain things out there. We don't have to get into the weeds of that right now, but the city is here to guide and assist, and I think sometimes that morphs into regulations that we're not responsible for. So we just need to be very clear when we're talking about we're waiting on the city to say X, Y, or Z. It's not always the city that is the end all on some of these things. But we can talk more about it. But
the John, I guess I'm trying to get a little feed. I hope you got that.
Well, can I jump in? I was on that committee with John. This is Abby from the Vista. And I know that like one of our questions from like event-based and from us, who had to cancel or postpone events from the spring. I think one of our questions from that committee was, we are H-tax funded. And so we asked for a carry forward on some of those events. And so if we are looking to still do those events, but with the postponement of those, as some of these associations or places that have, use those carry forward funds, if we've decided that we want to maybe do it in September, but do it as a, completely change it up a little bit and use it with some social distancing and kind of, just, change up our event so that it is safer for everybody around. Are we still allowed to do that? Like, are we still going to get the funds for that? I think that those are more of the kind of questions that we're looking for the city to kind of help with. And Missy Gentry was on our call and I asked her that, and at the same time said, I know that you cannot answer this now. And these are a lot of questions that, there's just so much stuff in the air right now, but that's just some of the things that I think that some of the folks who have had to cancel some things from that side of the events, not just necessarily event venues, are just kind of curious about.
So we're going to be putting out through the Zoom grants portal and process some information the city would need on what your intentions are, Abby, and others, because, you know, we don't know what your intentions are for events that you may have been able to have or may would like to have in the future or reschedule. Carry forward requests have always been in place, and we evaluate those and usually grant them. So we're in the midst of budget. There'll be a lot of discussions about H-Tax. It started this past Tuesday. It will continue this coming Tuesday with council. And we are looking, you're probably getting some feedback from Missy Kaufman and her office staff regarding some information we need so we can help guide the council on what, without us having really great projections on revenue right now, but also having to pass a budget that's balanced by June 30th on what makes sense as far as some cuts we'll probably have to make, but acknowledging that we want groups to still be able to sustain themselves as best they can. So you're right when you said we don't have all the answers yet because we don't have an accurate ability to project on H-Tax revenue. I was more getting into this I guess, commentary about guidance for events and having an event and when and where and all that.
Yeah, Teresa, let me put a bow on that, and then we'll go into technology transition. We'll have broader comments. I still want to respect everyone's time. The two issues raised, I guess, by John and Abby, which obviously all these things are interconnected in some way, are distinct. The city manager was clarifying is that other than the curfew, and obviously as relates to city operations in public venues like public parks, and obviously some unique situations, maybe like Soda City that use the public right of way, there are no other city rules in place. We're enforcing the governor's executive order. So obviously we weighed in heavily on 5 Points decision as it related to St. Patrick's Day early on. But there were no city regulations or rules that prohibited that. We're now enforcing the governor's executive order. So I'm not sure either what folks are waiting on, other than maybe some type of guidance or advice and counsel, as we attempted to articulate last week in the city council's meeting, as we thought folks should be doing as small businesses and others to make sure we maintain public health. So let's have some more conversation offline about that. But I do recognize that there's always a constant need for communication, just clarifying exactly where we are as a municipal corporation, and trying to make sure that the rules are clear. That right now we're enforcing the governor's EO. There are no other rules as it relates to events and the like. Probably some significant encouragement or discouragement of certain activity, but we probably need to get our arms around that. As relates to the H-Tax, Abby, and that's obviously something we discussed at City Council meeting briefly earlier this week, and we're going to be forehead deep in all those discussions going forward, recognizing the significant shortfalls we're going to see in hospitality tax this year and next fiscal year, and get our arms around a strategy that allows us to have some mutual responsibility in how we appropriate those funds going forward. There's going to be some serious belt tightening. A lot of coordination is going to be required, a lot of communication, and we're going to have some more in-depth conversations about that going forward. So I want to get my arms around, and I think the committee's concerns, as articulated by John, as to what other guidance is needed from the city, because at this point it may in fact just be our recommendations as to what might need to be done, because we're going to enforce the governor's EO as we have. We want to do it thoughtfully and responsibly, as our public safety officials articulated earlier. We want obviously to make sure we're doing what we can to ensure public health while never taking our eyes off their real jobs, which is public safety. Ensure that they're able to exercise their jobs on an everyday basis. So let's and John, I wouldn't mind picking your brain a little bit more, doing a little bit of a deeper dive as exactly what the committee is looking for there too, because the challenge we have now, and it's not just Columbia, but sometimes overlapping and often inconsistent messaging from the federal, state, and local level. I feel more comfortable that there's more of a gravitational pull towards some consistency now, and it might give us some room to make some decisions, or maybe even provide some guidance that might be helpful to everyone. Let's get the last. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Hey, it's Jen Suber from Divine Street. I have just a real quick recommendation. I know, John, you were talking about the scheduling of events and how things were canceled in, March and April, and now we're not really quite sure about what's going on. I would suggest, and I know that I'm guilty of not always doing this 100% of the time, the CVB has a wonderful website and an events website that, is already populated. It's great. It's easy to use. And maybe as districts, we can kind of commit to starting to put our events on that are canceled or, updates. And that way the city has one place, everybody has one place to look. And I think that's what we've been trying to do for years, is have one consistent calendar where everybody kind of puts their stuff. But maybe because of this crisis, this will, we'd ask everybody if they could just start populating that one place. So if you want to know what the update is on something, you would know just to go to the convention center's events website for it.
Excellent advice and input, Jen. I was thinking that as the question was raised too. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
absolutely. Technology transition.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. As businesses begin their reopening plans, there are several key areas where technology can help businesses, and I've listed a few of those here. It's not an all-inclusive list. First, we have appointment booking applications. These apps will allow you to schedule clients, which will help you manage traffic in your businesses, allowing for meeting social distancing guidelines. This also gives you visibility into who has been in your business at any given time, whether it be your customers or employees, which would be helpful in the event there needs to be some tracing performed. Second, complete mobile experiences, just like booking applications. This includes the ability to make mobile payments in-store and online. Next, we have email and social marketing. Social media is vital for businesses to connect to prospective clients and customers. There are tools available to help you promote your business. Social media can be useful for advertising your reopening plans. Of course, there's virtual meetings that has been utilized more and more. This can assist businesses as far as delegating daily assignments without having employees come in, of course, helping with the social distancing, hosting webinars, providing courses as it relates to your industry. There are many resources available online that provides guidance to businesses in embracing technology, and I've listed a few of those here. The U.S. Chamber has a lot of good tips available. They have social media kits that can assist you in advertising key information about your businesses. One key thing would be what are your reopening plans, making people feel comfortable that they're coming into an environment that's safe for them. As Melissa mentioned, there are some businesses that are not as far along as others as far as technology, and hopefully we can provide some training opportunities, as Melissa mentioned, through Fast Forward. I look forward to continued discussions with the team and identifying any where technology can assist as we embark on this new world, new age. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. before we slip to the discussion, Teresa, did you have something else you wanted to add?
I'll be brief, Mayor, to really follow up on what I was saying earlier in regards to the city's role. I want to be clear because as we're hearing about the governor's plans for the state to reopen state offices, et cetera, the city's never closed. We've been open this whole time. I think what is the key point for everyone on this call to recognize is that we've been operating differently, but we've continued to open. You will always hear me say that local government is where it's at. We can't close. We are the public service delivery component for everything that our citizens and businesses do. So the water has to be clean, the streets have to be safe, the trash has to be picked up. What you have found is that some of our facilities may have been closed, but that does not mean we have not been working. And non-essential staff may have been working alternate schedules remotely, et cetera. But we've been working and continue now to flex and do the work that's on this call. Every member of the A team at the city is on this call today, flexing now to focus on this very important work of the greater reopening of our community. And so we're now flexing our resources to put the time and energy into this, but everything else has to still continue as normal. So what I'm continuing to tell our leaders in the city is let me know if there is a function of government that is not happening as it should. And for the most part, I haven't gotten that feedback. You know, business licenses is a very key time for that. It's happening. People are applying. Water bills are being paid for, maybe in a different way. All of the things that city government serves to do is still happening, but we want to make sure that if any of you see a way that we need to pivot or do something differently or better, you're letting us know that. The one area which touches upon what we were talking about earlier is probably Parks and Recreation, and Assistant City Manager Henry Simons, who oversees that operations area with parks, is also on the call. And we're going to be talking with council about a continued phasing in of opening parks amenities, not facilities yet, but amenities such as the tennis courts, the basketball courts, the playgrounds. I will tell you CDC guidelines that we're following for summer camps and youth sports and play. I'm not comfortable yet that we're there to go out and say that we're going to be open for summer camp yet and those type things. There's a matrix that Henry and his team is following. That's a national matrix from the CDC. And if you look at that and look at the local community where we are, we would not open for summer camps yet. And thus, we're not clearly in a place where I feel comfortable with opening facilities. But we are on Tuesday going to continue to discuss, Mayor Benjamin and council with you, the amenities on the outside, like we have opened the playground, the green spaces and public walking trails, et cetera. That was the first phase. They're open. We'll continue on Tuesday to talk about these additional outside amenities and the comfort level for doing that. Outside of those public facing facilities, we're doing, as Harry said earlier, as far as preparing for our employees in our public facilities with protective measures, and that's been going on for a while. So just wanted to give that clarification that we're up and running and we're ready to go.
No, that's very helpful, very helpful, very helpful. And we're running up. I guess we've actually run up against a self-imposed timeline. I didn't know if there was some any other comments or some edifying commentary or questions or some of the things or responses to presentations that have been made. We're going to all these reports are going to be posted to the city website. So there's a lot of content. We want to take some time to digest them and give some critical feedback. We'll have some time. I think Teresa, we need some time on Tuesday to determine some of the things that might be quick action items that we can get moving on, and obviously some things that are moving are already as relates to signage and others. Let's just go ahead and keep moving forward in that regard. Any other commentary? If not, I'll assume hearts and minds are clear. Again, we'll upload the reports. Encourage everyone to read the reports of different committees, even if you didn't serve there, and provide us with some guidance and comments. I will say this, y'all. Again, everyone, all of us collectively, everyone's working their tails off, trying to make sure things happen. Public sector, private sector partners. This has been a regional effort. You know, as we get kind of caught up in the national debate, sometimes everything seems sometimes be defined in terms of red and blue. We're going to stay focused on red, white, and blue, and just keep working to move this great American city forward. So I appreciate y'all. I want to say as we move forward, we're going to continue moving forward with an incredibly optimistic view of the future. We're going to move forward together, and appreciate your leadership and your consistent guidance. How about y'all? Thank you.
Mayor, I think Jason had a quick comment.
I didn't see Jason's comment. Okay, Jason, you got something to say before we go?
Well, I had a few things I was going to give an update, but I won't do that.
Please do that. You're the only one who was polite enough to actually have your hand raised. I didn't know the but go ahead. You get the last word, Jason.
Yeah, no, I was just going to make a quick clarification. When Ryan showcased the virtual tours earlier during his presentation, Experience Columbia SC, we have contracted with that company called SkyNav, and we will start next week conversations with them to start doing the aerial tours of the city so that we can get that virtual tour without people having to leave their home.
As Jen also referenced, the calendar still up and running, thriving, needing more entries.
Yes, sir. And that calendar is the Experience Columbia calendar, not the convention center. Two different calendars. So let's make sure that we do the Experience Columbia SC calendar.
Okay, so it's an opportunity to use what we already have out there. And
Yes,
then last, the much more deep dive discussion as we look at the overall macro 50,000 foot HTAX issues and how they ease back into first and second quarter of the fiscal year, or third and fourth quarter, and just trying to figure out how we're going to make our way through this. We'll get it done, y'all. We'll get it done, and we appreciate y'all. All right, God bless y'all.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Taylor.